Alright guys, welcome back to the next episode, and in this episode we're going to finish that, and it did not exactly go to plan, and yeah, roll the intro. So this is episode 3 in my daily driver series, and I got a call back from my machine shop, and it was not good news. So what happened is all the seats were shot, all the guides were shot, all the valves were shot. Well, I guess half the guides were shot, and a couple of collapsed springs, and they ended up quoting me we could find all the parts except the springs, and for them to do it back up to good would be at minimum $2,000. Now, I bought the car for around that, so I'm not really willing to sink that into it. So I went and got this here head from, had an auto wrecker get it, or, you know, it was on a shelf at an auto wrecker and they sent it to me. So thank you, Foothills Mechanical in Rocky Mountain House, Alberta for that. And we're going to take this down to the machine shop and we're going to see if we can make 2 heads into 1 good head. And fingers crossed this actually works, because this video series is turning out exactly opposite of when I did the wife's one, where everything just worked and you could pull it apart and put it back together for minimal cost. This one is turning out to be exactly the opposite, where this is one of those things where it's just not on my side. It's yeah, going to be a little more difficult and a little more expensive than I had originally anticipated, but hey, this is a good warning that sometimes things go like this. You go into a project thinking that it's just going to be a quick in and out, and you find some things you weren't expecting to find, and it adds up. So this is a good example of how it can go bad sometimes. The other one was good. This is bad. So we're going to take this down to the machine shop, and I hope we can get this fixed. I really do. Otherwise, we go to plan C. And this video turns into a series of how to convert your 3rd gen back to a 2nd gen car and get rid of all of the stupid 3rd gen stuff that makes life just dumb. So hopefully we don't reach that, because then I'm sourcing a bunch of other parts that I don't know if I'll be able to get or anything. So either way, hopefully this one's in good enough shape where we can just valve job it, surface it, and send me on my way. And here's hoping. Keep your fingers crossed. Alright, so it's now 2 weeks later, and good news, everyone. That second head was actually good enough that we could reuse it, and they gave it back to me yesterday. So we can now carry on with this project, and I'm going to get this unwrapped and get it, you know, cleaned, rebuilt upstairs, clean all the parts that have been sitting here for now 2 months, and get everything ready to go back together. And we'll do a few other little things that I want to do before I put it back together. But then we'll finish building that engine from 2 months ago and go put that back in the car. So let's get at it. Alright, so I gave it a quick blast with some brake clean, and now I'm just going to put the studs back in it, and then we're going to go and we're going to modify the intake manifold to fix a problem before it happens. Alright, so I mentioned earlier that we're going to modify the intake manifold to solve a problem before it happens. Now, what happens is this tube here allows coolant to pass through from the head, through it, and then out to your heater core. Well, what happens is this tube here cracks, and then it starts leaking coolant. And one fix is you can trim out this webbing in the car, and then just pull the hose back on farther, and that'll solve your problem for a while too. But the other way to fix this problem, and the way I'm going to do it because I have it out of the car, is I've got this unit. And this is just a metal pipe. There it is. That will replace that. So that'll solve the leak problem anyway, but obviously now I have to remove a bunch of manifolds. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this tube off and we're gonna, you know, make it look like it was never ever supposed to be there. So now we're gonna cut that apart and modify that to solve that problem before it ever even happens. The main part of that all out of the way. I'm going to just try to clean that up, make it look a little more natural, and then we can start putting the intake manifold back together, put the throttle body back on, EGR system, and injectors and rails. Alright, so I kind of got the manifold up to make sure that I cleared enough here, which I knew I would. Now, this hole, so this kit that comes with this thing here, it comes with 2 studs, and the one stud goes here, which is basically a former, you know, one of the manifold locations. That was the other manifold location. This bolt is just in the head when you pull off the stud, or when you pull off the manifold. It's just there. It's tapped and ready to go. So you just install the 2 studs from the kit here, put on your tube, put the 2 nuts on it, and then that is now a tube. So let's get that on there. Now, because you used this stud in this hole and it used to have an intake stud in it, you will have one leftover intake stud and nut. Alright, I would say that's mission successful there, guys. So that side of things is pretty much all done. We just got to rebuild Mr. Manifold, put the injectors back in, put the throttle body back on, and all that fun stuff, and give it a hose down with some brake clean and get it back together, and then that's pretty much ready to go. Alright, so now we've got the intake manifold all rebuilt, and I just got the throttle body loosely on there to take it upstairs so I can put the gasket on up there. The head's ready to go upstairs. We just got to finish cleaning the rockers and the lifters, since they've been sitting there for a couple months collecting dust. We'll give them a good thorough clean. Then we can finish building that engine and get it outside and get it back in the car. Alright, so we're back upstairs with our engine block and we're ready to reassemble it. We got the head ready to go. I got everything all cleaned. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get this thing finished. I want to get my car back. Alright, so now the head is pretty much back together. Now we can move the camera around and we can do the timing. Alright, so what we're looking at is we got dot matches that one, dot matches that one, down here. These 2 links are perfectly straight down. Keyway is straight up. Dot lines up with that. So, in theory, the engine should be timed. So, we're going to give it a couple spins down here. A couple 3, 4 rotations and make sure everything spins and make sure we don't feel a piston hit a valve. And then we know that we're good to go. Now that the timing cover's on, I'll quickly just loosely put the valve cover on so I can flip the engine upside down and we'll do the oil pan. So that's about all we can do for now. Wait about an hour, torque that thing down, and then we're pretty much ready to wheel it outside and put it back in the car. Alright, so we're out in the yard, and there's the engine, and I got it down and just kind of with the cradle sitting around it, but it's time to put on clutch and flywheel, and so I'm going to explain what that's all about and what I'm doing there, because it's a little different. It's not just going back together the way it came apart. So I'll explain that to you, and then we'll get it installed. I want to swap it from a 3rd gen clutch and transmission to a 2nd gen clutch and transmission because I don't like the self-adjusting clutch of the 3rd gens, and I like the 2nd gen gear ratios better, and I want to see what it'll do in a 3rd gen car. So that's what I'm going to do. And I was so impressed with the Phantom grip unit that went into the wagon that I bought one. So I'm going to install this into that diff, and this is actually the transmission that came out of the wagon, and I'm going to rebuild that, and I'm going to put this unit in. I'm not going to bother filming it because I already have, and if you want to see me build the exact same transmission setup, you can do so by clicking the video there, up in the corner somewhere. It should be there. You can click that. Then you can watch me do this exact thing. So there we are. That's what's going in this car. All right, so we're ready to do the clutch and the flywheel. Now I got a new clutch or a flywheel from Luck and a new clutch from Impact. I've never heard of them before, so this is a bit of experiment. I'm going to try them out and we'll see how good they are. And yeah, let's get those installed. Alright, so I got as far as a flywheel and a clutch and getting the engine kind of on the cradle. I got the one mount and bracket on over here. And I got all the holes all plugged up, so, you know, it's getting dark. I'm going to leave it for the evening here, and first thing tomorrow we'll get the transmission on and start putting on all the rest of the, rebuilding the rest of the engine, slide it back under the car, and put it back in the hole where it belongs. Alright, and just like that, it's a new day, and I brought the transmission out. And I'm pretty much ready to put it on. And I did cover the engine with a bag for last night or whatever, so just in case something happened, but nothing did. That was probably the hardest part, just getting the transmission all mounted in there, but now that it's in there, the rest of it should fly together. So we'll get the intermediate shaft in on the back there and work our way up. Put on the manifolds, starter, alternator, power steering, get all that ready to go and get it into the car. Alright guys, so as you can see, I've kind of been cruising all right along here. Got the intermediate shaft on, power steering pump and rack back in, alternators in, intake manifolds on, all that stuff's all hooked up, and that side of the motor's pretty much done. EGR valves on there. So all we got left to do is the belt, and it's pretty much belt drive system, and it's pretty much ready to slide back under the car. I did film all that, but I lost the footage because my camera overheated and the file isn't there anymore. So whatever, I've done all that. You've seen me do it before, not a big deal. You'll see me do it again. So yeah, let's get the belt drive all done up and get this thing back under the car. So I got some spark plugs in and thermostat on, got the wiring harness and the computer all draped over it and everything. So this thing is pretty much ready to get put under the car. So I'm gonna bust my ass and move as fast as I can to try to get that thing bolted into the car tonight. And I got about an hour and a half to do it. So I'll check back in with you guys once she's bolted back into the car. All right, and it's the next day, and I was 3 bolts shy of where I wanted to get to by the end of last night before it got too dark to keep working, and I ended up getting this one front cradle bolt started. The other 3 aren't in yet, and I still got to finish lowering the car down. So I'm gonna get on that, and then I'll do an update after I get a little more done, and we'll just carry on that way. All right, I got the cradle all bolted in now, so next on the agenda is just wrap up all of our reconnections, reconnect the engine and all the cabling to the car, hoses and whatnot, and put the belt back on, put the AC on, tidy up the exhaust, put on the brace and the little plate on the bottom there, and yeah, reconnect some mounts, and she's ready for oil and first start. So she's not going to take too long after this, I don't think. All right, so the first thing I decided to hook up was the clutch system, because that's what I changed to a 2nd gen design clutch flywheel and everything. And I wasn't 100% sure that the 3rd gen master slave system would work, because it is slightly different, and it doesn't. I put it in and pushed the clutch, and it promptly wrecked the slave and shot the pin into the bell housing, and I had to spend a few minutes with a telescopic magnet fishing that pin back out. But then I went and grabbed the slave cylinder out of the turbo car's carcass there and put it in, and I pushed the clutch, and it appears to work perfectly fine. So if you are like me and you are planning on swapping your 3rd gen car to a 2nd gen non-self-adjusting clutch design, you will need the flywheel, the clutch, the throwout bearing, and the master slave to make the system work. But it will work, and it will work with any transmission. You can put that combination and attach it to a 3rd gen transmission, because the cases are all the same. It's just the gear set inside is different. So, duly noted. Now that that crisis has been averted, the rest of it should just smoothly go together. I don't see anything else that should cause me too much grief. All right, so I pretty much got this thing all back together. Just got to put some fluid in the transmission, but pretty much where we're at now is I just got to rebuild the front suspension. So put the sway bar back in. I guess I got to put the belt on and put CVs, control arms, brakes, put all that back together. Rebuild all of the wheel well there and put it on the ground. All right, so we're ready to build oil pressure for the first time. I got the spark plugs loose, the PCMB fuse pulled, and the battery hooked up. And then after we build oil pressure for the first time, I'll put the plugs and the wires back on, build oil pressure real quick a second time, put the fuse back, and fire it up for the first time. All right, let's get to cranking. There we go. Alright guys, wires are in, fuse is back, we're ready to start it now. So Well, I hope this goes good. Alright, so I primed the fuel pump a few times. Alright. Wow. All right, guys, we are running. Hopefully we're not leaking. Doesn't appear to be. All right. All right, mission successful. All right, well, I'll get back to you guys when we go take it for our first drive. All right, so I'm out on my first cruise, and everything seems to be going pretty well. The clutch feels a little strange, but I think it's still just breaking in. Take a little getting used to or whatever, but that's normal. I've broken in new clutches before. Engine runs really smooth, really nice, really quiet. The alignment is out. The appointment is next week. That'll be done. But other than that, we're pretty good. So I'm gonna go out and find a road with a little less traffic than this one, and I'm gonna go break in the rings, or seat the rings, I guess. And the way we're gonna do that is I'm gonna put it in third gear, and I'm gonna get to about 50 kilometers an hour, and then I'm gonna floor it to 80, and then I'm gonna get my foot off the gas and let it come back down to 50, and I'm gonna repeat that for about 10 to 12 times, and that should seat the rings in. Okay, this is number 12 of the ring break-in. So we're at 50, floor it, 80, and off the throttle. And that was the 12th one. So that's basically what you do. And now I'm gonna go head to the gas station and fill this thing with some gasoline. All right, guys, I'm back from my drive now, and it is nice and clean and full of gas and everything. There was just two little hiccups I found with it. One, the clutch doesn't quite feel right. It's releasing at the very top of the pedal throw. So maybe that master slave cylinder that I stole out of the turbo car there isn't good, so maybe I'll just put a new one of those in and hope for the best. And then it also kind of stumbles when you just kind of get back on the gas. It kind of stumbles a little bit, but maybe that'll get worked out with a fresh tank of gas, I'm hoping. But other than that, it's back, it's driving, it drives good, it drives smooth. And so yeah, I'd say we're successful. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.